My name is Mal Fleming. I am here to assist in your passage. Can you remember your name and the circumstances of your death?
Oh, hey, what's up, Mal? Joey Mills. It was an on-the-job casualty. Yeah, I fell from the scaffolding about 30 feet up. Really stupid move. Sucks the resuscitation didn't work. I could have gotten a sweet insurance payout, but, I'm also kind of glad I didn't stick around to watch the scene die a slow death, you know?
Nice to meet you as well. I don't suppose... Is there any way you could turn that down?
Turn what down?
The music. It sounds like there's a party in here.
Oh. Yeah. Sorry. Whenever I'm reminiscing about my days on the dance floor, the music picks up. I can't help it. I try to do it during the day when it'll get drowned out by the crows squawking or whatever. A lot of crows at the Greybrier. The other residents, they get kind of mad if I keep it going past 10 or so, but, that's when I used to, arrive at the party. So if I'm remembering a good night, it just sort of keeps going.
Huh. Thank you. I've heard snatches of it here and there. Was that some of your music?
I wish. No, I never got into making it. That was the great Sasha Vega. Unreal Selector, one of my favorites. I wish I had learned to make it myself, though. Growing up on Long Island, my parents had a piano, and they tried to get me into lessons, but I could never sit still on the bench. But at the end of the day, I really was more of a dancer than a musician. Do you like to dance?
I would say that I am not the biggest dancer.
Oh, but you gotta try it sometime. I mean, you live in the nightlife capital of the world, Mal. Or at least I hope it still is. I don't know what the good spots are nowadays.
Did you have a favorite place to go dancing?
That's like asking a parent to choose a favorite child. Well, I guess Sound Factory was my first, so it gets a special shout-out. And then even later when it became Twilo. Man, I still remember the first time walking in there. I'd just finished a big drywall job in Hell's Kitchen. Some of the guys I worked with and I wanted to go out afterwards, and we saw a flyer for the place on a light pole. That was how you found out about things back then. So I walk in there, I was still in my work clothes, my boots, I was covered in plaster, I probably looked like the biggest square in the room. And I think a few people stared when we walked in, but they didn't judge. Now that stuck out to me, feeling out of place but not judged. But the crowd, they were just too busy grooving and focusing on the music to care. And eventually so was I. The other guys, they didn't really get it. They left after a couple drinks, but I just kind of got sucked into it. And then all of a sudden it was 1, 2 a.m., 4 a.m. But yeah, I stayed till close. And then I, took the 6 a.m. train back to Rockville Center, slept all day. Sometimes I think sleeping after the rave might have been the best part of it. Because when you've been out all night and your head just hits the pillow when you get home and it's just like, bam, lights out. I always had insomnia, so that was great. Yeah, after that first time, I was just hooked. I was going out every weekend.
This was the 90s, I assume?
Yeah, I think it was. 92, I was a couple years out of college. It was just work, go home, sleep. It was my dad's drywall company. We would do these big jobs in the city. And things were good, so, the jobs kept getting bigger, and I got more responsibility, which was nice, I guess. Yeah, when you work a job like that, you're pretty much just fried at the end of the day. And you don't have a lot of energy for anything else. But yeah, after that first night, I always found the energy to dance, for a while, at least.
God, that sounds... I like being in bed by 10:30. I cannot imagine finding the energy to stay up that late.
Okay, look, it wasn't just drugs. And I know you're probably thinking, oh, the 90s, people were just popping ecstasy every weekend. Well, okay, yeah, a lot of people were. Honestly, it got pretty bad at times because it was still new. Nobody knew how to pace themselves. I remember walking out of the Palladium one morning and I had to call 911 for some NYU kid who was just puking his guts out on the sidewalk. And his friend said he took 3 pills. 3. Those things were strong back then. 3 pills of good E and you're basically turning your brain into a sauna. But honestly, I took it pretty easy with that stuff because I was just there for the music, I mean, ecstasy never really did it for me because it took me out of the music. It just made me want to talk to people and hang out. It's a very social drug. It just makes you want to open up and tell people how much you love them. Come to think of it, it's too bad they don't have a version of it for ghosts. I bet you could get a lot of the old stubborn Greybrier spirits to really let go. If you could dose them with some kind of afterlife MDMA.
I don't know if I'd trust myself with the dosage. or, want to be an afterlife drug dealer.
Hey, Ghost Drug Dealer sounds pretty fun. Good DJ name, too. DJ Ghost Dealer.
But you were talking about finding the energy to dance?
Oh, yeah. So look, when it's 4 a.m. and you're sweating and you're grooving and, you're with the same group of people you've been dancing with all night, it's like being on a long drive when you see those other cars on the road and you've just been traveling alongside them for a few hours. They become familiar. They're like these wordless friendships. But you're out on the dance floor with your new friends and you're just locked in and Junior's getting ready to drop Energy Flash and everyone's waiting for it. I mean, you don't need drugs. I mean, maybe just a little for a boost, but in that moment with a crowd, it just sustains you. It's like a form of higher consciousness. I don't really know how to explain it to somebody who hasn't experienced it.
It sounds a bit like a ritual, as you describe it. Sort of like singing in church or perhaps a seance.
Yeah. I was never a big fan of church, but I could sort of see how it's like that.
Yeah, I think everyone's sort of drawn to collective release. For you, it was raving.
There actually was a great warehouse all-nighter I went to once called Collective Release.
Was this different from Sound Factory? Sorry, I don't know the terminology.
Yeah, this was a little bit later into my nightlife career. I was still taking the train out from Long Island, but I'd moved out of my parents' place. I had my own apartment in a nice part of Long Beach. I was making good money, and I had worked my way up to supervisor. My dad really trusted me, He definitely didn't get the dancing thing. He probably didn't approve, but I showed up to work on time. I did a good job. Spackled those walls like a pro even after the all-nighters. God, it's crazy being young what you can put your body through.
I'm sure it is. You were talking about collective release?
Yeah, part of the whole warehouse scene. Slightly different world. Wilder. A little grimier. Really grimy, actually. You'd have to call a phone number at a certain time to hear a voicemail message telling you the address. And then you'd go out there, and sometimes you'd be in the middle of industrial Bushwick or Maspeth in an alleyway between a restaurant supplier and a Boar's Head truck yard and just totally sketched out. The cab drivers wouldn't even want to take you sometimes. And then once you made it inside, you'd be stepping over broken glass and needles, and there was probably asbestos in the air. Actually, there definitely was asbestos in the air because later on, when my company started doing more renovation work, we were the ones removing it. And, then there was always the possibility of cops showing up and shutting it down.
So how many people would come to these parties?
No idea the exact number. But with bigger functions, it was easily in the thousands.
And do I dare ask what times these started?
Officially? Pretty early. Like, around 11 or midnight.
You consider that early?
Yeah, that's after 10:30. Sorry, Mal. Look, ask any real raver, and they'll tell you the party actually starts at 3. That's when the crowd gets good and the music gets good. And I think Collective Release, yeah, that was one of the better ones. Great production. They somehow got an abandoned MTA train car into the building as a set piece. No idea how they did that. I remember looking up and seeing people dancing on top of this chunk of the A train. And then you had these lasers cutting through the fog in this way that felt like ancient Greek columns. They somehow got disco balls way, way up in the rafters, and the way they reflected the lasers, it's just incredible. And the crowd is...
What was the crowd like for something like this? Did you have friends you went out with? Other people who like staying up past 10:30?
You're being too hard on yourself, man. You should try it. Just drink some coffee or something.
I mean, I've tried to go dancing in college.
What'd you think?
I got tired too easily, and I think I prefer music. I recognize music with lyrics, I guess.
My first year or so of going out, I tried to get my friends into it, but I think they were more your speed. A lot of them just couldn't deal with the late start times or music they didn't recognize. And we were all adults with real jobs. Most of my friends had already settled down and started families, and I had some friendly acquaintances in the scene, some familiar faces I'd see out a lot of the time, but real friends... I had friends. I just had trouble cultivating friendships in the rave environment. It didn't feel like the right space for it.
Why do you think that was?
When I was dancing, I liked to not be reminded of the world outside the dance floor, Yeah,
I don't think I've experienced that with dancing in particular, but I feel like I know what you're talking about. I mean, right now I'm rereading Ward McAllister's Society as I Have Found It. It's this fascinating, sort of infuriating look at 19th century New York society by one of the people who basically ran it. And when I'm reading it, when I'm really getting into it, it feels like time just slips away. I kind of forget the person I am for a little bit.
Yeah. Just sort of forgetting yourself. Any reminder of the real world or your real life is like it's like someone throwing a bucket of ice water on your face to wake you up.
Was there anything in particular that you didn't want to be reminded of?
I mean, dancing and listening to great music, it's more fun than anything in the real world. But, the 90s, people say it was a progressive time, but it wasn't really. It definitely wasn't in Rockville Center. But then I'd go into the city for work and do a job in Chelsea or Hell's Kitchen. I'd get a glimpse of what life could look like for someone who's not really in sync with traditional values, if you get where I'm coming from.
I think I do.
And so that was really tough because I loved my parents. I really loved my dad working for him. I told you how he trusted me. He never got my raving, but he accepted it. But there's some other stuff I don't think he would have been as accepting of. I was also at a point where I was managing the other guys on the job sites, really old school Long Island tough guy types. They definitely wouldn't have gotten it, even though I may have gotten a vibe from one or two of them, but they'd never admit it. So I just kind of had to roll with things and pretend that part of me didn't exist.
But it sounds like it existed on the dance floor.
I just remember one of my favorite things about the rave was being able to look at people and not feel weird or creepy like I was staring. I always had trouble remembering faces, but I remembered bodies, and then what I remembered more than anything else was movements. God, there was this one guy. His shoulders. The way he moved them, it was just mesmerizing. I mean, these shoulders were something else, man. It was like watching ice melt into water and then freeze back into a solid simultaneously. I must have spent an eternity just watching his shoulders. It was beautiful. But then at some point, I remember he turned around and talked to his friend, and I heard his voice, and it was...
not as beautiful as his shoulders.
Yeah, it all just deflated in that one instant. People talk about falling in love on the dance floor, but that never happened for me. I only ever loved the possibility, who they might have been, how they moved, up until the moment they opened their mouth.
Well, it seems like part of the appeal of raving wasn't just forgetting who you were, but sort of fantasizing about how things could have been, about how other people could have been.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. And look, I mean, I had a great life. I shouldn't complain about it. It was easy to keep up the facade as long as I could go out and dance. That was my outlet. Which eventually, yeah, I mean, you probably know how the 90s ended. Fucking Giuliani with his quality of life bullshit. Everywhere got shut down. Everywhere good, anyway. I remember the last night at Shelter. People were crying. I was crying. The queen hosting the night, she was crying. And I was tripping a little bit. And her face, I just remember, was this waterfall of glitter and mascara. And, we still had the warehouse thing for a little bit, but it didn't matter because it was right around this time I fucked up my leg.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. How did it happen, if you don't mind me asking?
I don't remember, and it's so annoying. Because when you get injured, you at least want to have a good story to go with it, right? I just woke up after a night out like any other. And then all of a sudden, my left leg was completely cooked. Maybe I tripped on my way up or down the stairs somewhere. I was on crutches for over a year. By the time I was walking, hobbling again, pretty much all the clubs had closed, so I stopped dancing for a while.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah. And then, after 2001, politically, My dad and I just stopped seeing eye to eye. It got harder to pretend the differences we had didn't exist. I still worked for him, but it was more of a business than a family business. Just doing the job, collecting the check, saying a few words at holidays. And he was getting sick.
Did you have any other outlets since you couldn't dance?
Well, I couldn't really walk that well, so I was just sitting on the couch, TV and video games mostly. I had a GameCube, which was nice for a while. Metroid Prime got me through a lot of the dark period.
Oh, I actually played that too in middle school.
Nice.
God, I should replay Metroid Prime.
Yeah, dude. Sometimes you just have to roll into a little ball and shoot space pirates. Huh.
Joey?
So, in 2006, my dad died. Lung cancer. He was a pack-a-day guy.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It's...
After he died, it was sort of a turning point. I took over the business. I had basically been running the place myself for the past few years anyway. I was busier, but I also had a little more flexibility to rest and take it easy when I needed to. And then I found this great physical therapist who got my leg a little better. Still not 100%, but better than where it was before. He recommended going to the sauna. Did you, have you ever been to the East Village baths?
I haven't, but I've heard of them.
Yeah, it's a classic institution. Still open now, I hear, somehow. It feels illegal in there. They definitely had to bribe someone to pass inspection. Anyway, I started going for my leg, because the heat really helped it. And, the fog in the steam room, it kind of reminded me of the fog on the dance floor. Watching the bodies through the fog in the same way, except I didn't have to dance. I could just sit still and be present. And I was going 3 times a week, 5 times a week. I mean, nobody could give me shit about it at work because I was the boss, right? And that was how I ended up meeting Jay.
When I researched you, I read the tribute that he wrote. It was very moving.
Yeah, he was special.
He seemed like a wonderful partner.
Yeah, he was. We were both in the same boat, both older with similar stories, and from Long Island too, although he was a little further out in Islip. And he was still new to being out, but just a little more open than me. And what's funniest is he was a DJ. He did these little parties on the Lower East Side called Smacked. So I'd go out and hear him spin, and it was no Sound Factory or collective release, but it got me moving again.
So you danced again?
Yeah. Of course, by this time I was a little older, so I couldn't go out all night anymore, though I could stay up past 10:30, unlike some people. And drinking just didn't agree with me, so, I'd do maybe 2 hours max and then call it quits. And Jay was spinning for an older crowd, other guys like us in our age range. It was nice.
That sounds much less overwhelming.
I don't know, I feel like you might not have been able to even handle that.
All right.
I'm sorry, But yeah, it was a nice way to relive some things, and then there was this one night that Jay and I were feeling kind of adventurous. We heard there was a new spot in Williamsburg, Third Degree, I think it was called. So we tried to sleep a little extra all week to prepare. Drank some coffee at 9 p.m. so we could be ready to go out and stay out. We took a cab, and then the first thing we noticed when we get there is like, wow, okay, everyone here is 20 years younger than us. Then, our friends showed up, and it was like, okay, we can hold it down, represent the older generation. So we're hanging in line, and it's just like the old days, and then we get to the door, and the bouncer gives us this kind of weird look, but lets us in, and we get frisked by security, and then we get lectured on how to conduct ourselves in the space, which, really? I was thinking, we've been doing this since before you were born. I mean, we should be the one telling the kids how to conduct themselves. After all that, we finally get on the dance floor, and the vibes are good. We can kind of get back into it. Maybe we get a few weird looks from people from time to time, but we can tune them out. The music was fine. Honestly, the sound system was probably better than anything we had in the 90s, and the production and lighting, all really impressive, just on an objective level. But it was just... there was something missing. It wasn't what I remembered. It wasn't the same.
And what do you think changed?
I don't know. I mean, like I said, everything was still great on a technical level, super impressive. I think it was just me. I hate to even say it this way, but it was the moment I realized I might have aged out of it.
Aged out of dancing?
Not just dancing, all of it. The whole nightlife thing. You know what sucks about getting old? It's that it doesn't happen all at once. There's no magic sign that comes up and says, yep, you're old now. I almost think that would be better or more merciful. The awful thing about getting old is that it happens gradually. So gradually that you can almost convince yourself it's not happening. I mean, you can go through your 20s looking and feeling mostly the same, and, that's a full 10 years, and sure, your skin and body changes a little and you grow up, but you're not old yet. And then you hit your 30s, and you can almost convince yourself you looked as good as you did in your 20s, and, you'll have a day where maybe you see yourself in an unflattering light, and you think, oh, I must just be tired today. And maybe you're right. But then eventually it happens a few more times, and you realize, oh, you're not just tired. That's just what your face looks like now. That's what your back feels like now. That's what your body is now. And then you're struggling to stay awake. Well, maybe not at 10:30, but definitely at 11 p.m. And you have to plan your whole night out around when and where you're going to be able to sit down next. And it's just... How old are you?
34. And I've always preferred to read a book and go to bed early. But, for a while, I didn't think my hairline was going to recede. My dad's genes would have skipped a generation, but...
I think you can rock it, personally. But you get it. Anyway, me and Jay and our friends, we called it around 1 a.m., which was early back in the day. Took a long cab ride back to our place in the city, my bum leg killing me the whole way there. I never went out again after that night. Which is why I spend a lot of my time now remembering the times I did. Because when I was young, I never realized that was a finite resource,
Hmm.
I'm just realizing I never got around to mentioning the specifics of how I went out.
Right, you said you fell from scaffolding on the job?
Yeah. The work site where it happened, it was a renovation job. In the 2010s, a lot of these old industrial spaces in Brooklyn, they were getting turned into lofts and condos. My dad's, well, I guess it was my company now. We were taking the asbestos out of the spot. Really long hours, dangerous work. I technically didn't have to be on site anymore, but I thought it was good for morale, so I'd show up every so often. And get this, the warehouse we were working on, it's where collective release happened. I couldn't believe it. I saw the plans from the architecture firm, and it was just going to be this big chunk of ritzy apartments. So I was thinking, all right, hell yeah, let me drive out there and see it one last time.
What was it like?
Well, the job was still in its early stages, so honestly not that different. Still a mess. But I was looking up at the ceiling, and I shit you not, I saw one of the old disco balls still up there in the rafters. And it must have been there for decades. And I thought, man, how cool. I mean, this can be a souvenir from the glory days. I was thinking, I'll take it home and we'll hang it in the kitchen or something. So I made my way up there, but climbing that scaffolding, I hadn't done it in forever. I definitely hadn't done it with my leg in its state. Well, when I reached out for the disco ball, bam. I didn't feel anything. It was just dark. I still think about whether that was worth it. Trying to grab it, I mean, if I should have just taken note it was there and then let it stay there. Watch it fall down, shatter, pieces of mirror swept up in the rest of the demolition. Maybe I wasn't meant to get that close. It should have remained a memory, just like all those good first few years of going out. Sound Factory, Palladium, Twilo, collective release. Remembering those nights, those dances, that music, those beautiful shoulders. I mean, at the end of the day, I couldn't relive it, so I just have to remember it. And if I go through the Onyx door, I might not remember anymore.
You know, I'm thinking of something you said about raving, about how one of the best parts of it was the end, when you'd get home and everything would be quiet.
Yeah. Best sleep of my life.
Yeah. Have you considered that maybe passing on could be another way to experience that?
Huh. I see what you're saying. And maybe it could be like that, but there's no guarantee it would be. And if it wasn't, and I still didn't have my memories,
Unfortunately, I can't offer any insight into that.
I'll think about it. But I might need a last hurrah, I'd really like to just run it all back one last time before going.
It could be helpful. It might even keep going after you leave.
Never thought of that. Sort of like a shrine. That would kind of be the ultimate after party.
Unfortunately, I don't think they'd let me put a disco ball in the mausoleum.
I wouldn't want you to risk it. I don't know if you can put in a good word with the other residents, but
I'll talk to them. I'm sure they'll understand, especially if it's the last one.
Well, let me get back to it for a bit.
Of course. Take your time.
If the music stops eventually and doesn't come back, you'll know I've done it.
Joey Mills. Passage completed.
You've been listening to Conversations with Ghosts, a Dead Signals production. For complete cast and crew credits, check out our website at conversationswithghosts.com. Dead Signals is an independent operation, and we're supported by our patrons. If you like what you hear and want to support the work we do, go to patreon.com/archive81 to sign up. You'll get a bunch of fun extras, including behind-the-scenes Q&As, music, and access to the first podcast Mark and I ever made together. That's patreon.com/archive81. As always, thanks for listening.